Good morning, and welcome back to Who Am I? Welcome back, my faithful listeners. I don't actually know who you are, but God bless you because it helps keep my focus honest. I know that there's somebody out there listening to me, and so it's just interesting. Thank you. I've been doing it for months without anybody listening, not posting it to YouTube, but now I'm posting, and thank you for being there. So, who am I? A worthy question. A worthy question. We're going to ask it for about an hour and a half this morning, and then I'm going to go start my day. Who am I? Who am I? You know, by bringing all of that reference in, it actually focused me into my smaller self, and so I have to kind of work my way back to my broader perspective. This is not the easiest thing to do, this show, and for the longest time, I mean, and even still, I'm not sure where we're going. You know, somebody else is kind of steering, and I'm letting her. You know, as long as she has my best interests at heart and seems to have ideas about what we're doing, I'm going ahead and letting her help. So, anyway, who am I? Who am I? Who am I, and why do I ask this question every morning? I ask it because we don't really know. We assume too much. We're not in agreement. It's going to crash around our ears again in a big or little way. I think we have a lot more systems in place to help buffer it this time. We've been working very hard for the last 100 years on creating a different landscape, a different backdrop for the scene to play out on. We have a lot more tools at our disposal. Our communication with one another is greatly advanced past where it was back in the 30s and the 20s and the 40s and the teens, and whenever you want to mark the great events that happened last century that should have made us a little more humble about who we are. You know, when you look at what human beings do, when you look at what human beings are capable of doing in a dark, wicked way, it should sober you up a little bit. Now, I don't put a label to myself. I'm not sure exactly what I am. I was about to call myself humanist, but you know, there's a specific thing that means, and I'm not sure exactly that. Without that definition in front of me, I'm not sure I'm going to say I am and fill in that blank. I'm a humanist. I am a humanist in the sense that I'm everything. I'm everything. I'm everything. I'm everybody. At least and especially in this space I am. Because we're just talking about who are we as human beings? Who am I as an individual, but as an individual from the point of view of what hardware am I driving? What have I been issued? You know, for this iteration. And I say that, but you haven't really been issued it. You're part of the whole thing. You issued it to yourself. You're a field event at the same time that you are an individual event. You are all of these things, all put together. We are all of these things, and it makes a difference because as we interact with one another and as we interact with the rest of the field, if we hope to be successful, highly successful, the most successful that we could be, we need to just keep in mind, you know, emphasize a few things, focus other things a particular way. I have recently been reminded of some concepts like basic needs. Now, Maslow has their hierarchy of needs. Everybody learns that goes through Intro to Psych and other class, Intro to Philosophy. However, just because you're basically aware of our basic needs doesn't necessarily mean that you have looked at it in this particular way. I am starting to learn in my life, for instance, to want what I need and need what I want, and I'm turning off my negative mind. I'm switching it off and going to kind of a neutral. You know, you don't have to replace your negative mind with busy mind. I, as a human being, have always favored alignment over momentum. Some people, they want the world to go fast. However it works, you know, they'll work it out as they go. You know, let's take that fast ride. But I've been a cautious one in that way. If things don't go well, I don't want them to go. Now, I understand that they are going. And so part of me can't stop that. But where am I going with this? Well, my general feeling about that was a feeling of superiority, because for myself, it is right and correct that I hold alignment as my highest value. You know, I recognize momentum over there. I see you. I see life moving. I understand we're going places. I understand that things are changing, and that's one of the rules about this life of physicality and form. And actually, my exercises in the show Who Am I are really watching me. Well, as a show, it's you watching me. From my perspective, it's me gaining this vantage point where I spend an hour and a half looking at the view from the point of view of my broader perspective. No resistance whatsoever, absolutely loving everything, looking at everything I'm looking at in... It's sort of fleshing out to me what Abraham describes all the time about who our inner beings are and what they're doing. For an hour and a half, as my small self, I come into this who am I space, and as I ask this question, who am I, and I muse about my nature in a free-form kind of way. So don't hold any of this against me. Actually, I stand by nothing that I say. Nothing whatsoever. I'm just thinking about the whole thing. Who am I, and what does my life mean? My assumption in this format, and for my whole life, always, the primary assumption, and there is none other that will stand before this one. Primary assumption is the whole thing, the whole setup, is at the very least perfectly okay. And beyond that, the whole thing is not only okay, but magnificent. Magnificent, powerful, wonderful, amazing. And I believe that humanity will be better served if he would cast his view to things like, who am I? Because it is the who am I that is going to save us from ourselves. It is going to be what will, the who am I is what will lead us out of our own self-created wilderness. Will lead us to the place where we are no longer in the death grip throes of massive empire collapse. I don't know if we're actually doing that. We might be just as powerful as ever. But the problem is as a nation, we are very out of alignment right now. That's why we are so at each other's throats in our political sphere, why we are so not understanding one another from both sides of the political spectrum. We're really in a place where we are not getting each other. It is very, 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 very important that individual freedoms stay intact. That my ability to just peacefully, to myself, in this format, I mean, the fact that I can make these videos and put them out on the internet without much editing, the only thing I ever came in into a problem with was when I had to make a point about something that I thought was cute. I played a little clip of somebody else's video, and of course YouTube flagged it. It's still up, but now any hits I get on that particular video, I don't get any money on, which is fine because I only have like hardly any views at all. This is not all about me building a technological empire of, whatever. It's not about that at all. This is about me honing my craft. My craft being my ability to sit by myself in a room early in the morning and talk to myself non-stop for an hour and a half about who am I in reference to source energy. I haven't mentioned that. Source energy. We're talking about source energy. What is source energy? Source energy is the 0-point energy field. You've heard all kinds of things about it. It's the quantum field. You've heard that word. The Q word is everywhere. Quantum, quantum, quantum. And when somebody invokes the Q word, all of a sudden they get in the room, fills this spirit of both wise scientific knowledge and mystical magical forces. And it's true. It's true that those two spirits should come into your mind when the Q word is invoked. But it would be helpful if you really understand how the Q word is going down. How it goes down. Why it's important. Why it's important that you are the quantum field. For one thing, understand that as the quantum field, you are not just by yourself. We are co-creating this with everybody, and there's a flow of everything else going. And it's all, the general flow is expansive and positive and okay and interactive, and has to do with everything else evolving in the field at the same time. You are not alone in this. So most of it is that. What's the rest of it, and what am I talking about? Hold on a second, I will regroup. So the quantum field is like, I've heard it called so many things. It's like this superfluid, this divine plasma that makes up all of the universe. What it is, it turns out the building blocks of the structure of physical reality are not physical at all exactly. They're little vibrations, they're little frequencies, they're little teeny weeny units of mass, energy, whatever. A plonk is what everything's made of. And that's what the quanta is referring to. So who am I And why is it helpful to look at the world in this incredibly, I realize I am very abstract. I come into this space and I am intentionally abstract. I am abstracting from the situation the core elements of what I believe matter. Literally, matter. Matter to a real experiential life, at the same time mattering to the matter world of this universe. I believe that it comes together here. And our clearer understanding of this general setup, and then live out of that. Don't say, okay, yeah, I get it. Conceptually, I get it. But on the ground, life still looks like this. And my pattern is da-da-da. And my momentum is such and such. And I don't know why what you're saying has any meaning to anything. Well, it does. It does. It's where everything kind of comes together. I'm trying to find that place where it converges. Where the win-win-win, we need to find the win-win point. And actually, it will be to the glory of us all. And it helps. It helps the players in the field. If you see the whole thing as aspects of yourself, it helps. It helps in the gathering, the summoning of the collective answer. The, oh, this is what it is. And when I say collective answer, every individual has to come to their own collective answer. It's how the whole thing orchestrates. You really can't... oh man, I'm so flooded with thoughts. I'm getting so many thoughts. And to boil them down, to find the ones that really matter. I have found it helpful to think of this in terms of the individuated spins. So the whole thing is spin. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please, I'm referring you to my earlier episodes. Please get up to speed to the vantage point that I am taking on this material universe that we are looking at, and the source energy aspect. What is source energy? Source is spin. Source is spin. And from my perspective, what I think is going on is that we all are divine autonomous individuations within this complex universe of an infinitude of spins. It's all spin. Everything is spinning. Spin is what is moving everything. And if you raise your eyes off of what's immediately around you and look to the big picture, you will see quite easily we are all spinning. Everything is spinning. The earth is spinning. The sun is spinning. The earth is spinning around the sun. The sun is spinning around the galaxy. The galaxy is spinning around the cluster. The cluster is spinning around the supercluster. Ad infinitum. The multiverses are spinning with one another. It's all spin, 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 spin. But you can boil it back. I believe that there is a primordial singularity that we all spring from. There is a source of the spin. And source is spinning. Source is the one that's spinning us. And so source is the one who can orchestrate the spins in the most harmonious fashion. How the spins are spinning is determining the rendezvous points of what energies to what purposes. What's driving it? What's the engine that's driving it? Well, I maintain, and I didn't think of this. This is not just my idea, but I think that this is the right one. I think that it is moving on desire. And when biological beings are in their clear desire, without the engagement of the negative mind, which is what human beings can do. The negative mind is what human beings are really good at. The other creatures are not so good at it. And that's why they don't do what human beings do. They do not create the suffering that human beings create. Now, I barely even like to look at the human at any suffering while I do this show. Although it is with a respectful understanding that suffering is out there in a big, big way. There's a lot of people who are hurting. But I don't think that any of us are victims truly. We are victims of our own ignorance. We are victims of our own superstitious upbringings. We are victims of our own hubris, our own lack of self-awareness. And the good news about that is a little bit of self-awareness is going to go a long ways towards fixing us. And, I hope this doesn't have any sound. Hold on one second. So please forgive me. I took rather a long break. It was several minutes long, and so I don't remember exactly what I was talking about. You know, it's always who am I? It's always source energy. It's always trying to find different ways to explain how cool this universe is that we are a part of. And if you would identify with yourself in, line yourself up. Line yourself up with yourself and see what happens. That's all I'm saying. I actually have nothing else to say to anyone specifically about what they should do materially. I just have no advice for them whatsoever. It's simply a matter of understand thyself and then go forth and address the exact same things you were doing before. But know who you are as you're doing it. Don't be fooled by your negative self. Your negative self is a distorted reflection of who you really are. And it can get really, the momentum of it can really get going. The wickedness of it can really get going. And the reality of it can really get going. But what I'm saying is don't be fooled by it. Do not be fooled by your negative mind or anyone else's. Know what it is. Know who we really are. And then back to an original concept from earlier. This is some advice that I would give others. But it's I don't know. It's what I've been trying to do, and it's working for me. I think it's a good idea to line up your wants and your needs. Want what you need. Quit wanting things that you don't need. And actually, it turns out that there is quite a lot of leeway within the needs category. And these days, there's even the first couple of ones take more conscious thought than normal. So the needs are air, water, sleep, food, shelter, relationship, and expression. So go back to basics. Instead of, so many thoughts are going through my head. First of all, like right now in time, ecologically, humanity is having a bit of a problem here and there upon the planet. Actually, we are a scourge upon the earth in some places. There are other places where we appear to be blending harmoniously, but at the cost of other places where we are mining and scraping out, things we're destroying our planet in some ways. And then over here, there's beautiful places, but it's costing, things like the tar sands and lithium mines and, I don't know. Not good, not good. Ecologically, not good. We're having a hard time on planet Earth. I don't look at it all the time. As a matter of fact, most of the time I go back into my backyard and I am focusing on the trees in my backyard and the native and not native, all the plants and flowering plants and the birds that come to visit me and the sounds of all the life I can hear in the air around me all the time. That's what I focus on. But I have an awareness. I have a dim awareness that's sort of out there. There's things going on that I say it this way because you got to know I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news since maybe 2018, 2019. I quit watching the news except for just little bits. Oh, no, I may have watched it up to 2020. It's been a number of years though. I haven't watched the news during the entire Biden administration and before Trump was getting way too hard to watch. And then when he was defeated and disgraced and he has all these indictments and he might be going to jail and oh my God, can't people see through him? Why can they not see through him? And so he's not going to be a problem. And then as I'm not watching the news, guess what's coming up? It's going to be another election between Biden and Trump. I can't even believe it. And even if they don't win, they're going to claim they did. And the machinery that they've got going to actually enforce that, we don't believe that, he really won, kind of thing. It's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting. And I think that the whole reason the whole thing's going to happen is because it is an energy event. It doesn't have anything to do with logic like we think it should. We have all these things in place. It was supposed to stop the problem. Our forefathers, our sainted forefathers, didn't they come up with this system that was going to absolutely not... It was this shining example of something, to a beacon of something across the world, the beacon of democracy. Well, actually, I think that a different thing is going to have to happen before humanity is going to get to a place where our nations are more in alignment. We need to have, actually, as nations, we should come together and there should be some sort of agreement, universal human rights, universal ecological rights, right to air, water, sleep, food, shelter, relationship, and expression. All of those things, that they should be free and guaranteed. And so any company that as they do their business befouls the earth or the air or the water, it shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed. And we say to ourselves, but we have to do it. We have to do it because civilization marches on and the energy needs are the energy needs. And I'm going to tell you that for over 100 years, we have been lied to by our sainted government because, a great source, at least from our perspective now, it's been happening worldwide because our nation states are not as powerful as we think they are. There are real forces backing them up, right behind them, probably industrial forces. Industrial forces, what would be another word? Let's just leave it at industrial forces. The industry, business, where the money is, where things are actually happening, standing right behind the government forces, as in the infrastructure that owns all of the fossil fuels. But through the instrument of our own patent office has many of the suppression originated. Somebody invents a fabulous device that either puts out more energy than it appears that we have to put in to run it. And people go, well, that's not possible. It is possible because nothing is a closed system and source energy is everywhere. And so it is possible for over unity devices, for devices that put out more energy than it takes to run them. And we should be emphasizing have a nationwide contest for who can invent the coolest one of these and have $1 million prize or whatever. And in the meantime, you're going to have a whole bunch of backyard Edisons. I was going to say Einsteins, but it's probably more like Edisons that are going to be building these ideas that will take us away from fossil fuel. Incrementally. We can do it incrementally. While at the end of the road, I believe the holy grail of the whole business is to understand source energy itself so that we can plug directly into source energy. But if you give unlimited free clean energy to every being who needs or wants it, we're gonna bust abundance wide open, because everybody then could go off by themselves and create their own little compound. Actually, that's probably why we haven't done it, because until we understand who we are, collectively, generally, peacefully, energetically, spiritually, in alignment, vibrationally with who we really are, is reflections of the Almighty. The whole thing is just a reflection. And when you get all the way out, if there's just one of us, but you have to break into 1 million bits, because if you go all the way to there's just one of us, then there's no one to relate to, and then you have no relationship. And so you can't do that. That's how the whole thing is designed. It's really quite magnificent. And if every individual could understand who they were as both an individual and as a collective, if we would get it, then we could interact with everything so peacefully and so beautifully and so perfectly, so harmonically, so in alignment with who we really are. And there is a point where every single being, biologic, on this planet can have every single thing they need. There is a win-win point where everyone gets all the food they want, all the air they want, all the clean water they want, all the sleep they need. They have relationship of their choosing, and they can express themselves in their authenticity to the fullness. There is a point. There is a win-win point. That's an article of faith of mine, by the way. And you may not believe that. And if you don't believe that, then, we could argue right here. But I actually don't want to argue with anybody about anything. I have nothing to argue, because you're going to come back at me and tell me about some darkness. And I can't argue with you about that, because honestly, the world, when you go out of alignment with who you really are, because who you really are is so very, very powerful, when you're out of alignment with it, it's terribly serious. And it goes all the way to Holocaust. All the way to the greatest subtraction consciousness move of all time, the final solution. Absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. And I'm telling you, we don't need to do that again. The energy is moving that way. The wheels are in motion, but the field on the ground is way different than it was 100 years ago. The internet is here. And the internet connects us to ourselves all over the globe. It's the rudimentary. It's just infantile still. It's developing. It's not quite in place fully and freely as it will be. but it is the budding nervous system of humanity with a capital H, this single being that we are upon planet Earth. And 100 years ago, when we perpetrated the last Holocaust, I'm not talking about minor Holocausts happen all the time, little genocides here and there. I'm talking about the big, public, worldwide, the way we played that out on a worldwide stage, not, some little minor county doing their, few thousand people murdered over here, or even 100,000 over here. This one was the big kahuna. 6 million intentionally attempted to be exterminated, to be subtracted because of this fallacious, this out of alignment configuration of the physical mind. It's Wetiko in its absolute grandest conflagration. I mean, it played out in spectacular publicity too. All publicly, the Nazis had this insatiable urge to document everything that they did, to document their descent into madness. And a good thing too, because it gives us a lot of lessons. But since then we have created, now most of this we created in our pursuit of fun, entertainment, our enjoyment, feeling better. Most of this was created for that. Our creation of things like moving pictures first. Now, moving pictures were still around. They were around, both not so much in World War One. A bit more in World War II. There were movies, but it was, at that point, there were so few that they could still be used as propaganda more. It wasn't what it is now. The number of places where human consciousness, where human attention can focus now in a connected to each other through media kind of way, has exploded. Back during World War II, what kinds of media did we have? And it was very, the government could control. Loose lips sink ships and all that kind of stuff. And so it was really choked down to a minimum. What people were looking at, what they were thinking about, it's way different now. It's why World War III hasn't already happened. Because we're not all looking in the same direction at the same time. Back during, when we declared those two wars last century, what happened was we were collectively, generally, gazing in the same direction as people around the planet. We assumed an us and them paradigm. We assumed negative things about one another and then acted on those negative things collectively as a people. In our anger and in our fear, we acted. That's what we did. Now you might say, okay, I'll grant you that, but you know what? There are things that is right to be afraid of, and it is correct it is justified to be angry about certain things, and then you need to stand up and act on these things. And I'm going to say that I don't think that that's true. I think that our negative mind is trying to show itself and what it does and what the consequences, what the whiplash effect we get when we unleash our negative mind, both individually and collectively, how it plays out, what these little storms of negative chaos that appear because of us going with our negative mind. We're the ones unleashing the demons. And if we would understand how those demons are unleashed so that we could stop it, as I have said before, and I don't really just mean this poetically, there is a specific physical thing that is happening that we do when we go negative, when we believe our negative mind, which, by the way, does not know what it's talking about. It is our positive mind that is truly connected to the reality of this world, to the protons of this universe. It is connected to the reality of this universe. Now, the darkness that is connected to all that isn't, that's something else, and you can go into the consciousness of everything that isn't, and it can get really dark over there. Dark and scary and suffering over in the isn't. But you know what? You know what it is about the isn't? It isn't. And so if you just focus on the is, then all of a sudden the world gets way brighter, way lighter, way cooler. And what is the is we're going to focus on? The fact that human beings are really cool, and we happen to be driving really sensational, sleek models of biotechnology that somebody gave us. They gave it to us, and actually they shouldn't have. And I don't know whether they shouldn't have or not. I'm air quoting that now. Shouldn't have. They shouldn't have. They shouldn't have in the sense that they broke their own laws to do it. So they were naughty. Naughty. I've got my air quotes out again. But it gave us some capabilities that I think that we should explore, that we should think about, that we should really, really drill down and get to understanding what we are capable of doing, because we've got large problems, and what we need to be doing is fixing our problems. But the way you fix your problems is not by focusing on the problems, but by focusing on the solutions. And know at all times that the universe, any problem, air quote, any problem that the universe can produce for you, the universe can produce a solution. There is a solution. Just know that. Know that in faith. Know it in faith. Rest in faith. Knowing that the solution is there, and focus on the solution. Go there and feel that solution. Oh, it feels so good. Feels so good. Wow. Now you start getting the impulses and the ideas. Oh, I know what will fix this problem, because you're standing over there in the solution now. Your consciousness is standing in the solution instead of standing over here in the reality that you think is primary. The physicality of it is not primary. The primary aspect of anything is both mental. Mental is primary and vibration is primary. At least it's primary over the physical representation, the expression of the rolling manifestation. That's secondary. It is a secondary effect. So if you want to change the physicality of it, which is a secondary effect, you have to go to the primary to fix it. And then the manifestation will roll out the solution. You want the solution to appear in the physical, but the physical is a secondary effect. So how do you change it? You don't go right out and try to, it's just exactly like the analogy of the mirror. The reflection of the mirror, the frowning face in the mirror, is a secondary effect. The primary is whether or not you are smiling. And so if you want to change that frown in the mirror, you can't fix it from the outside by forcing it to smile. You have to go to where the smile is. You have to smile. And then the mirror changes. That's exactly how it is in your world, in your universe. And the vibrational output that you are doing, this is why it is so cool that somebody has created us, because of what our biotechnology can actually do. If you can learn to output the feeling of the physicality that you desire, you will receive the ideas, the download of ideas and the impulses to act that will lead your steps in the direction of the unfolding of that physicality that you want. Your emotions will lead you to the physicality that matches the emotions. Watch yourself. If you act on impulses and thoughts that are completely from your chaotic and negative mind, imagining that is a legit, that's all you're doing, watch how the world turns out for you. It doesn't turn out very well. It's very, very rough ride for someone who takes their impulses that direction. Now watch someone's life who goes the other way, who is always following faithfully the positive, the loving, kind, hopeful, eager, interested, excited, there is a solution and we're going to fight, the can-do kind of approach to life. Watch how someone who is operating on those frequencies, look at how their life turns out. And you may be focused on the 3D aspects of it, but know that what is happening in front of you is someone has tuned into the right channel. And from tuning into the right channel, your output is in harmony with your surroundings. And then what you get back is conducive to us all, to the win-win paradigm that we're looking for. The win-win paradigm is the object of the exercise, because you are not just yourself, you are everybody else too. And if you are in a win-lose, I win, you lose, then there is still a really important person in the field right now that's losing, because we are all a single being. I know you can disagree with that, and it's also true that you're not just a whole, you are autonomously divine. You are divinely autonomous. You are an individuation yourself that is really important too. It also may be possible that the individuated you that you are can never be unindividuated. There is also that possibility. I have heard that. You exist, and you will always exist, and you can never not exist. So, I suppose I believe that. Who am I? Who am I? I know I get very esoteric, and I know I almost even sound crazy sometimes. It's funny, when you get into this space of non-resistant thought, where the arena that you're playing in is, by definition, I'm pushing back against nothing in here. Everything's fine in here. It's all good. It's all well. Everything is to the positive. It's all expanding. It's all working out for me. I don't care what it looks like. Positive, positive, positive. When you get into this space and start talking, start thinking, start adding things together, some very interesting things happen. I do understand that on the ground in my physical body, and I do still have a physical mind in here somewhere. She's still here, yeah, I'm still here. And she has preferences about what she wants in this world. I am in a physical body, so I want physical safety, physical comfort. I want my physical needs met. I want to continue to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and have access to abundant clean water for myself and for me to help distribute to the biology around me, so that I can help co-create this beautiful space, this sanctuary space that I've got going on down here in my agricultural community down by the river. I do have a physical life. I recognize that. I want to stay free. I want to stay free to do what I do, which is, I bowl. I have a smattering of loved ones that I agree to spend some physical time with. I agree to move about the world a bit in my physical body with my physical husband, and we have adventures. And that's fun. You got to keep moving. I'm over 60 years old, so I've got to breathe new life into my life, or I will atrophy like many older people do. Reinvent yourself. Reinvent yourself. The world is changing. Don't cling to the physicality of your past, because it is passing. And I know that's hard for us to take. We don't like the change. But I believe that a way to make us more physically and spiritually conducive to the inevitable changes is get your plugged into the right place. Get your identity, who am I, plugged into the right place. And then you're okay with change. If you've got your identity over describing, when somebody asks you who you are, and everything that you can say about who you are is a description in the physical world. It has to do with, I'm an American, I'm an earthling, I'm a humanoid, I'm a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or a fireman or whatever. I am. And every single thing, I am a boomer. I was born. Well, actually, the identification of yourself as a biological being, a place and time on the grid, is valid and helpful, and eternally valid and helpful. But the fact is if everything that you think of yourself as you is identified with something in the physical world, if you don't have something somewhere else to identify with, then as the physical world changes, you don't know who you are, and you get you get a sense of vertigo, identity vertigo. I don't know who I am. Like say if you are the master, you've built your empire, your whole identity, you've put all your eggs in this one basket, you built your empire on being the buggy whip king. And the year is 1905. And you don't know anything else that you are. You're becoming nervous because that's passing. Cars are on the road now, and although there are still buggies out there, there's plenty of horses and buggies, and will be for probably another 20, 30 years. But it's on the way out. And who are you? Are you the buggy whip king? Maybe every identity you've ever had has been centered around that physical thing. Well, as that passes, who are you? Now, I have mentioned this in previous episodes. I've made it to this point in the description and the understanding, the looking at your two aspects. I have not even changed. I am almost an hour in, and I have not even changed this. I love this new picture I just found. Yesterday, I think I found this. I love it. This girl watching the ocean under a full moon reminds me of myself at 12 years old. My hair was long like that too. Sitting on the beach in Kenya, outside Mombasa, gazing out to sea under the Indian Ocean, gazing out at the Indian Ocean under a full moon, with my young heart yearning for I did not know what. Anyway, I like this picture, and I haven't changed it yet, but I'm going to come to picture I always change it to at some point, because this represents something to me. This picture represents your two minds, your source mind and your physical mind. And your source mind really does know what you're doing. And it really is connected to more than just you. And it really is going on, whether in a positive way, no matter what direction you and your physical self, no matter what direction you take. You can take a negative stance. Your source mind will never do that. Your source mind is too busy being occupied with the plethora, is that the right word? The enormous quantity of physical knowledge of everything around you, where everything is, where all the protons are, and what they are doing, how they are moving, what direction, what's their temperature, what's their speed, what's their velocity, what's their entropy, what's their everything. Everything is reporting uploading their information every plonk, billions of times a second. You are new. That's actually why you can't tell that you're new. Because can you imagine billions of times a second you're new? Wow. That's too many times for your physical mind to actually why do I think this identification is important? I think it's important because, especially in a world of intense change that we're kind of experiencing right now, it's so different that every generation, it's almost like every group of children born at least every 10 years has a different outlook on the world because of the new way that everyone is making money, because of the new configuration of the communication systems, because of the new way everyone is being raised different. They're being shown different things. They're being their consciousnesses are focusing in different directions as they have different truths, different realities, and they're all different generations. Every 10 years is a new generation. Not every 20 years. It's a consciousness generations, and they're all of these generations of mankind are all standing on the same stage at the same time. Usually all the generations, they have slightly different perspectives, but not massively different perspectives. The difference in perspective from I don't even know what the generations are. Gen Z, Gen Y, millennials, of course, Gen X. Some of those are older than others. I think X is older than millennials, and Y and Z are younger than millennials. I'm not sure about all of this, though. And every generation has a new name for themselves, too, though. And I've heard them, I just don't remember what they are. The idea is we're all right. And let's go back to the analogy of the old men, the white men. They don't have to be old. They're blind men. The blind men and the elephant. And let's learn from this little allegory, this little analogy, this little story. You have all the blind men standing at different places on the elephant, each one of them claiming elephants like this. No, it's a sail, and a rope, and a snake, a tree, a wall. And the idea here is to understand we are all blind men standing at some place on the elephant. Our little point on the grid equals some place on the elephant. Each and every one of us is a blind man standing at a different point at the elephant. And in a way, every single one of us is right. In exactly the same way that every one of the blind men is right. There is something sail-like about an ear of an elephant, and there is something wall-like about the side of an elephant. But the thing is where they accelerate in their rightness is where they understand that each and every one of us is looking at a different aspect of the great elephant. And you're right when you add it up, and you're wrong when you argue about it. It is not for me to say that it does not look like a sail to you when it looks like a wall to me. Whatever you say you are looking at, you are correct. Because the consciousness of our experience is such a large part of this picture. So you can't negate what anybody else is. It all adds in. If you want to know what the great elephant actually looks like, you have to add up all of our perspectives. That is the perspective of God. And it actually is something that a human being can imagine. Now, a human being cannot hit this view quite like God can, because God actually can see all the parts. You can see all the parts that you can see, and you can put them into alignment the way they go, and then you can sort of let yourself imagine the rest, and it can sort of come to you. But you can't see it quite like God can. But you can do something really important and interesting, and I'm doing it right now. Instead of describing it, instead I say this sentence that, oh, I hear it, I'm sorry. I don't like to use the G word anyway, because it is so loaded. It is so... So many people have a preconceived and it's not identified, predefined word, definition of what they think that word means, the G word. I like the Almighty, because it is also a word that people have used for the G word. And I think that it vibrationally rings very true. The Almighty. And each and every one of us has a direct link to the Almighty through our black hole atomic structure. These integrals, these little integers of our protons, which are black holes. Each and every one of them reporting up to the whole. Here I am, this is what I'm doing, this is my information right here, right now. At all times, all of your atomic structure is doing that. And the wholeness, the Almighty, is downloading its allness information right back to every one of the parts. I describe this every day. I describe this in every one of my episodes. And hopefully you're getting it now. You're understanding that we really are in this liquid, plasma, ether, quantum, Planck oscillation structure that is so super duper cool. The way it's reflecting back what we're giving it, well, it's interesting when you are intensely negative and you reflect out the intensely negative mind. What you get back from that is really interesting too. And all of this, all of our human experience should be going to us better understanding who we are, right? Now, when you get it, you go, oh, okay, got it. You gotta smile, and then the mirror will smile back to you. Go positive, and the universe will reflect back this beautiful positive. When we go negative, oh my God, does the world turn dark. Let's don't do that, people. Let's don't do that. When our physical mind goes places that our source mind is not interested in, when you go in your thoughts into places where your light mind, your source mind, does not shine its light, the darkness that ensues, the whiplash, the demons that are unleashed, the wickedness that you perpetuate. You don't even realize it. But it's like, imagine the archetypal character, the one who is highly religious person, very concerned about sin and wickedness. And yet, from a broader perspective, when you look at that scene, you know that she's the one bringing the wickedness into the scene. She's the one beating the children, to get the demons out. Or she's the one who has brought the darkness to the village. But she thinks that she is ferreting out the demons. But it's her focus on the demons that's bringing the demons. Do you understand? Do you understand how this works? Do you understand that we need to understand how our own behavior is bringing the demons into our own lives? We are creating them, and we are creating the Shiva energy in the quantum field when we do not understand who we really are and what we really need. We need to focus on our needs and kind of move away from the things that we don't need. Especially the ones that are not in alignment with our true nature. Because any time that we create, and because I have an effect on my fellow human beings, when I create something that is not in alignment with the field, is not in alignment with who I really am, and demonstrates by my very creation of it that I don't understand who I am, its out of alignmentness sort of has this vibrational effect on the rest of the field. It starts creating what I call Shiva energy. This is the energy that people are wielding when they beat each other up, when they rob each other, when they lie to each other, when they... all of the wicked, bad behavior that echoes out stems from this source. It comes from no other place. And so I don't want to spend I'm not going to spend my time any longer trying to battle wickedness where wickedness does not exist. I will only battle wickedness where it exists, and that is at its source. And the source is me. Well, it's the only source that I have any control over, my own alignment. And then, through my alignment with my inner being, my vibrational overview, which is my little slice of the divine, my little ticket to God, if you will. But I'm not God and no one else is God. I am God and you are God and everybody's God, and these are all the many faces of God. I know it sounds scary. It seems like there ought to be somebody minding the class, but there isn't. It's just us. Now, actually, I did mention that we were genetically modified. I believe that we are, and I may or may not. I guess I can show you I can put this up. This is my evidence. Human chromosome number 2 being what creates 76% of the neocortex volume of the human physical mind. I believe we were genetically modified. And I believe that whoever did it to us they were disobeying their own laws. That's what I mean when I say they shouldn't have done it. I don't know that they shouldn't have done it. I sort of enjoy being a human being. It gave us the Ferrari that we're driving, the consciousness Ferrari that we are driving. But I think because we are driving this consciousness Ferrari, that it's really important that we understand how it works, how it drives. And hence, I dedicate my show. Who am I? We have this identity plug, and it's hard for me to say exactly where, but imagine it like a plug, and you've got to plug it in somewhere. And you want to plug it into the world of form because that's what you see around you. But when you plug this identity into this field of form, it turns out the form changes all the time. And so this plug I'm talking about needs a place to go where things don't ever change. Well, in the world of form, there is no such place because that's one of the rules. The world of form is always changing. It's always fluxing. It cannot help itself. It changes. Now you can hold it to changing to a great deal more of the same for a space of, for an interval of change time. You can do that, but it's still changing. It just changes more incrementally and you get more of a stable experience. Oh, okay. It's changing, but it's changing mostly to more of the same, and so I have a sensation of continuum. It can do that, but it can't quit changing. The world of flux and form will always change. And right now in the human world, what we've got going on is changing quite quickly. And any of us who've got our plugged into the world of form, we're having a hard time because this plug I'm talking about needs a place that doesn't change. Now, if you're living 500 years ago, you can plug it into some things physical that don't seem to change for a long time. And so it's okay. You can put that plug there. But right now, you can't do that because everything is changing way too fast. So where do you put this plug? Well, I'm going to tell you right now where you put it. And then you don't have to worry about the change. And as a matter of fact, from this position, change is way more acceptable. It's like, okay, I can change. I can change into anything. Be an octopus. Be a chameleon. Change in any... It's okay. Change is good. Change is fine. As long as you are connected to your source. When you are connected to source energy, then the change is fine. And source never ever changes. What is source? Source is the Planck field. This energetic field of frequency plasma. I guess I don't really know how I want to pronounce that. Plasma. This field of this Planck plasma that can morph into anything you want it to morph into. What do you want it to morph into? I want it to morph into a situation where in front of me I am beholding human beings, each and every one of them getting everything they need to thrive. And all other non-human creatures getting everything they need to thrive. I actually believe that the way the field is set up, the win-win point is where every single individual gets exactly what they need. And not necessarily more. I mean, everybody's going to get a lot more than they need because the abundant factor skyrockets. And everybody gets everything they need and more. They don't just get what they need, in a paradigm of scarcity. And all right, so where am I going with this today? Like I said, if you are listening to me now, then what you are listening to is research and development. It's me refining my craft. What is my craft? My ability to walk into a space and talk freely about this subject for an hour and a half on my own, covering all the bases. And then, coming up with new things as they occur to me. And I know that I am not polished. I know that I am not ready for the greater world. I know that they would grind me into hamburger and eat me alive. It is not necessary for me to be out there yet. It is just necessary for me to come into my office every morning and faithfully discuss this topic. The reason I do it is because I believe this is the secret to us finding our way to our sustainable future. That's the Holy Grail, isn't it? A sustainable future. And I'll tell you right now, it's not a secret. It is not sustainable for us to fuel our society on fossil fuel. It is not sustainable. It doesn't make any sense anymore. But the problem that we have at hand is that our society, the momentum of materiality, all of our infrastructure, all of our structure of our infrastructure is based on fossil fuels. So that's why I come at it from the direction that I come at it, and why I always post the lost century and how to reclaim it. It's not just boo-hoo, the century was lost. It's, oh my gosh, do you realize what has been hidden from us? Now that it's not hidden anymore, and you realize that we can incrementally move off of fossil fuels first, and then the Holy Grail, the big kahuna, as we plug everything directly into source energy. And we can do it, I believe, or at least the movie implies that this technology is possible. Solid state devices that plug our technologies directly into source energy. What do I mean solid state? I mean devices that don't have moving parts that will break. And so they become really stable. And every home has one. And it allows you to plug all of your technology directly into the 0-point energy field. But the only way you can do that is you got to really, really, really understand your relationship to it. Your relationship to the quantum field. You are the quantum field. But what does that mean? And what do you do with that? What do your two minds have to do with it? And what does your spiritual state of being have to do with it? You are a mirror. What does that have to do with it? You're a transmitter and a receiver. What does that have to do with it? Who am I? As I cry that to the heavens. Now, next week, I'm going to take a break, and so if you're a fan of the show, please forgive me. From the 4th to the 11th, we are in Mexico. We are going to take one of those little ventures out into the real field. We're going to do a field trip, if you will. My husband has recently retired, and so we're going to be taking a lot of trips. In June, we got another one scheduled. We're going back to Connecticut for my eye doctor. But while we're back there, we're going to just take the opportunity to play a little, to explore a little, and to reconnect with one another. It's another field trip, if you will. Exploring the field. So, anyway, I always have an interesting time getting my sea legs back underneath me after a break. I took a whole 3 weeks break when we went to New Zealand. 22 days. As a matter of fact, I might have taken 23 days off the show. Then I came back online for a minute, and then I went offline, although I still recorded. I wasn't really comfortable with putting out what I was saying. I don't really know what I'm saying, and I want you to know, little physical me doesn't go back and listen to this afterwards. I'm saying big things, and on the one hand, I stand by them, and on the other hand, I stand by nothing. I resist nothing. Anybody says anything to me, I'm not going to argue with you. I will argue with no one. There's no reason to argue. I feel like we are all the blind man and the elephant. And it doesn't help to argue about our positions, but rather to try to see one another's perspectives. That's really the idea behind all of this. Who am I? I am us. And there is no them, by the way. I am us, there is no them. Now, I also understand that from my physical person's perspective, there is us. My physical person is an American, is a whatever it is I am. And there are others than that. There are those who are not American, so there are thems. But from a field phenomenon positioned, and that's the actual truth of what's happening. The other is our consciousness is interpreting things. But there is no them. There is no them. There is no them. And we need to quit thinking in terms of us and them. There is only me. And everything that, every win realization just brings me to a place where more of me is winning. I don't know. I'm going to have to take a break for a second because, as will happen when I have been at it for over an hour, and I'm well into an hour now. I'm an hour and more than a third, coming up on an hour and a half. Sometimes I'm not sure where I'm really going with this. I know that for mankind, I say these things for this reason. I believe that our problems are being caused because we do not know who we are and we do not know what is real. I also believe that all of our so-called problems, real or so-called, all of our problems can be solved by us better understanding who we are and how this works. I believe we can get off of fossil fuels because of in our better understanding of who we are and how this works. And I think that that is going to immediately help clean up the air and water and defuse the centralized power problems. The centralized power problems. The centralized power problems being caused by our centralized systems being caused by our centralized energy systems. And that when everyone has the ability to create their own little Shangri-La, their own little space, their own, well, it's probably not safe to have a world where everybody can do that until we all get to generally a place where we agree on some very, very general things about who we are and how this setup works. And it's sort of a general view about the elephant. Let's understand, first of all, that the elephant we're looking at is not isolated just where I am. So I'm swearing that this elephant looks just like a rope. This elephant is like a rope. It is like a rope. But it's only because I don't have a sense of what it's like up there by the trunk, or over there by the leg, or by the ear. And that the true answer to all of this, to understanding the elephant, is we got to add it all together. And this brings me to one of my pet ideas. I love this idea: addition consciousness, as opposed to subtraction consciousness. That consciousness where you have to, an idea comes to you and you go, you taste it and you go, Do I add that one in or do I subtract it? And that is not what I do with ideas. Everything has to add in. I choose which I focus on, but I do not choose what I add or subtract. I subtract nothing. You can't subtract anything. How can you subtract anything when ultimately what you are looking at is the allness? Allness, by definition, will include everything, including things that you don't understand, including things that you don't know what to do with, including things that you disagree with. You don't know what to do with them, you disagree with them, you don't understand them. Well, what do you do with those? I have a place in my consciousness, and I set it up a long time ago. And it's just this place where, in my mind, I say this to myself, it's the place where everything goes. And there's no real, I do not add any emotion to anything over there. It just all goes in there. It just goes in there. I don't know what to do with you, but I'm just going to put it in there. It's things like, as I was growing up, I remember watching people bear their testimony with such passion and fervor. I could feel their sincerity. I knew they were talking about something that really, I could feel how they were in alignment with themselves as they said these things. They believed what they were saying. And I didn't know what to do with that, but I felt it was important, that it wasn't just a question of I believe them or I don't believe them. I'm going to put that in or I'm going to not put it in. It was more like, this really matters, and I don't know why or how, but you believe this, and so I'm going to put it in here somewhere. I have since come to some recognitions about, I no longer discount the reality of people who are following ideas that the ideas themselves don't resonate with me, but I can see what you're doing. I can see what you're doing with it, and you are correct. You are correct. Anytime your philosophy or your religion or your rules that you go by encourages you to follow the still small voice within you, that little, the Holy Spirit, that positive, loving, beckoning voice that is trying to give you direction. And any religion that encourages you to get into a state of loving, open-minded alignment first. Now, I said open-minded. I'm not sure how open-minded this religion was. It pretended to encourage you to be open-minded. It would say things like, be open-minded, let all the information in. And then when you come to the conclusion that we are correct, then this is what you will believe. Now, that's not exactly where I went with it. It's like, read these books and open your mind. Ask God sincerely, are these things true? And then when God tells you that they're true, then, join our flock and do these things. So there was problems with that religion, but there was things about them that I thought was correct, and I couldn't understand what to do with any of this information. And the point of all of this is put it all in one place. That place where everything goes. And at some point, God himself will start organizing this information. Actually, I said God himself. I would say God herself. But there really isn't any gender involved. I would say herself because the her gender is so associated with abundance and pregnant, like things becoming more. And as well as nurturing and all of that, the female gender actually represents so much more of what I believe the allness actually is. But it's neither male nor female. But follow your inner being. Align yourself with your inner being. And then follow those impulses. Once you are linked up with Source, Source will organize you. Will organize you in loving, kind, supported in all of your needs and many of your wants. A lot of your wants, your desires do coincide. There are places where your desires and your needs absolutely correspond. In clarity, your needs and your wants absolutely correspond. Your wants are things like freedom, abundance, joy, relationship, expansion, fun, efficiency, beauty, all of those kinds of things. Those are wants. The needs, you don't have a need for beauty necessarily, but you have a desire for beauty. And you don't have a need for abundance, you have a need for adequacy. But you want abundance. And you don't need to be completely free as long as all of your 7 needs were met, but you want to be free. So you have all these desires, and actually the place where your desires and your needs meet is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. Where your desires and your needs actually meet one another is probably that place on the grid, on the board, where all of us win. It's the place where all of our desires and our needs converge. That's the point we're looking for. The win point, because it is not a zero-sum game. Although the reflective nature of the universe is so powerful that if you believe that it is a zero-sum game, you can create a paradigm on the board that is very, 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 very win-lose zero-sum game looking. But the actual field is not set up that way, and we don't really want to live our lives that way, because win-lose means you got losers, and then you feel the losers. What your neighbor is doing is affecting you. When your neighbor is suffering, you feel it. You feel it because we have things like mirror neurons in our brains. We have brain neurons in our hearts. We have a little brain in our heart, and we are actually not functioning correctly and optimally amongst ourselves unless our heart and our brain are linked together. It is a frequency. The Heart Math Institute has been studying this heart-brain connection and its relationship to effective human behavior for 25 years. It's really cool. And they have this quick heart-brain coherence technique. It takes a couple minutes, is all it takes to get your heart and your brain in alignment with one another, then address your situation from this new heart-brain connected perspective. It's sort of like praying. Praying can kind of link you into that position. But what you do is you direct your consciousness to the area of your heart. Touch your heart, touch your chest right over your heart if you need to. Help direct your attention that way, and start breathing through your heart. Do this for a minute or so, and then bring to your consciousness a feeling of gratitude. However you do it, summon something that you're grateful for. A child, a beloved child, a circumstance, a loved one, a configuration, something that makes you grateful. Summon that feeling, that vibration to yourself. Your heart, your brain, that feeling. Bring it together. Now, readdress whatever it is you're looking at from that vantage point. Makes all the difference. Plug yourself into source energy. We're going to look at this from so many different directions over the next weeks and months to come. People will probably keep plugging in because for a nugget every morning, for just a moment, maybe I come across a new way to say something and they're like, oh, yeah. I get it. Who am I? Question of the day. Question of tomorrow. I think I'm going to end it for today. And if you were with me, I am so grateful. I am grateful for you. I am grateful for this opportunity to come into this space and discuss these things. Tomorrow, I will come back and do the same thing. Who am I? With an open mind, with an open heart, adding all things together with no resistance whatsoever. I push back against nothing within the allness. It is all there for a reason. It is an integral wholeness for me to subtract nothing, for me to understand all things, and to choose my path from that which I prefer. And to that purpose, to that end, I will come back tomorrow and do the same thing. Until then, I bid you peace. I love you so much. And may the source be with you. I know it will.